this is a two-part story. As we all know, Trump got elected in office, and now there's an overall concern about the immigration status for a lot of people who are right now in sanctuary cities. And I remember bringing this up, especially to a lot of activists. Is there a plan to really make sure there's a pathway for citizenship? Do we have the resources necessary to take care of the people? Is there going to be real attempt here to find balance in a program that we're not ready for? And many activists, many Democrats were quick to dismiss my concerns and the concerns that my colleague Daniel brought up. And now, since Trump got reelected into office, a lot of people, including heavyweight AOC, don't know really how to respond to the crisis. And even in my state, the great state of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker has gone on the record by saying local law enforcement won't cooperate with raids and deportations of illegals in his state. Now, there is a migrant crisis, especially in Chicago. Many of these facilities, we've had a recent guest on a show, Jamal Green, who shared with us numerous stories of the lack of sanitation and cleanliness in these buildings. There's also a lack of real concern in regards to how migrants are being put into neighborhoods in which, again, causing further divide in a hyper-segregated city. But first, let's talk about AOC responding to it. Now, I don't know what kind of word salad she's trying to say here, but it makes no sense whatsoever. So let's play this video. And folks, brace yourself for a word salad.
What should migrant communities be doing to prepare for what's coming? I know.
It's hard. We are in a very hard moment. It's very sad too, because I think in the information environment that we're in, there's a lot of people, first of all, that genuinely don't believe that this is. I think the Trump campaign ran on this narrative that they were talking about somebody else, right? That they were just talking about quote unquote criminals that are being deported. What a lot of people I don't think has sunk in is that the administration believes that anybody who is here undocumented has committed a criminal act. And so they are talking about everybody, naming Stephen Miller as his deputy policy chief. These are very real signals that they fully intend on pursuing as broad and aggressive deportation campaign as possible. I think that there are certainly immediate steps that people at home can be taking. It's really important that the people around you and that you have a team, whether it's someone at your church, whether it's a family person, that they have your information, that there is a plan in case you are apprehended. I come from a district that was very heavily affected by ICE raids during the last Trump presidency. It is important to have, even just from a triage, first aid situation.
So I just got to stop here because I'm not going to handle her continuous word salad for so long. You don't have a plan. There was never a plan. Okay. If you were a supporter of AOC, or either that, or if you were a supporter for sanctuary cities, this is a prime example of somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay. Why am I bringing this up? Because I kept on bringing up this issue for the migrant crisis, and that is, what's the plan? What's the overall plan? And the consistent thing that we have seen in the sanctuary cities is that there was no plan. There never was one in the first place. Many migrants were just flown here and put into shelters, and then that's it. And of course, a lot of resentment was brewing between generations who've been living in these sanctuary cities like New York or Chicago, for example, just using those two cities for example, who were wondering, okay, well, how come all these new people coming in are getting all these wonderful programs and benefits? And to be clear here, the reason why we do have a migrant crisis is because of the ongoing war on terror, the war on drugs, political sanctions, economic sanctions, all of that. There's a reason why there are kids in cages. It's because of the past decades of presidential administrations, both Democrat and Republicans, implementing all these disastrous decisions. I mean, after all, we saw firsthand how successful prohibition worked in the 1930s. Yeah, the war on drugs is doing swimmingly well. Who's buying the drugs? Mr. and Mrs. America. Who helped rise up the cartels? Nobody knocking the door of the CIA. So when the sanctuary cities were being implemented, being planned out, we here at Hardlands Media did talk to a lot of people who seemed to have the know, but couldn't give us the answer. There was never a plan. That's why AOC is giving a word salad here, because she doesn't want to admit that there was never a plan. There never was anything for these people who came here. So on the one hand, oh my God, there was never a plan. On the other hand, too, you know, should these deportations take place, and it will, it's going to be harsh and disturbing, and it'll be very sad to see. But before I continue on with this video, I want to pull up something here. It's only 11 seconds. But this is somebody who is an illegal immigrant who talks about it.
If you get deported, would you regret your support to Donald Trump?
No me arrepentiría.
He's saying that he wouldn't regret supporting Donald Trump. So you're really not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your children and the future of your children.
Yes, I want the better for my children.
If you
By the way, not everybody's a robot, Democrats. The reason why I played that 18-second video is because there's been an ongoing conversation, and because there's a lack of voter enthusiasm, especially here in Chicago, for example. And I'm going to use Chicago, for example, because for a long time, a lot of people say, oh, well, Chicago's got a communist government. Oh, Chicago's got this socialist government. No, we don't. No, we don't. Oh, no, it's far worse than that. We got a corporatist government, okay? And anybody can actually run to be involved in Chicago politics. You just have to take the D and wear it around your neck, okay? Wrap it around your neck, the D, the Democrat name. And the thing is, the reason why it is what it is because there's a lack of voter engagement and voter enthusiasm. And the Democratic machine here in Chicago, the infamous machine itself, started by Old Man Daley and the old guard. All right. If you really want to know about Chicago politics, read the book American Pharaoh, and it'll give you an idea of just how screwed up the system is. People aren't engaged. So, by theory, how do you bring back the numbers? You got to bring in people that will follow orders and obey. I want to pull up this video here again of AOC. Just to remind you guys, there was never a plan. There wasn't a plan. There was never a plan to begin with.
If your child is documented, if your child is a citizen, having a plan for your child, having your documents and everything, what you do have prepared and ready. And also, if you have a member of Congress, like myself or any other member of Congress, especially one that is known for championing immigrants' rights, if you're represented by a member like that, open a case with them and make sure that they, I am able to open cases for my constituents. And sometimes you need to sign a pre-release form so that a member of Congress can act on your family's behalf. And so sometimes I will advise my constituents to open a case with me so that we are authorized to do whatever we can.
Yeah, so they could do whatever they can. But the thing is, this is going to be a very interesting year just to see how Trump is actually going to implement any kind of because he ran on it. That was one of his campaign promises, right? Now, these videos, when they do happen, when the deportations do take place, will be difficult to see and watch. So many people came here on the false pretense that they were going to be taken care of. There was no plan. There was no action. It was just to happen as feel-good points. Feel-good points so that people would support said Democrat officials. And this is a warning I gave to a lot of activists and protesters. Hey, are you certain that the Democrats are doing this out of the kindness of their heart? And by the way, if you don't live in Chicago, you don't know how cruel some of these politicians can be, right? It's a sick machine. And for those who say, oh, Chicago is communist, oh, you're so off. You're way off on the mark, but that's fine. That's fine. It's a corporatist machine. And here's our Governor J.B. Pritzker, who seems to be taking notes from those in the past of being obstructionist to Trump, how local law enforcement won't be engaging or supporting federal authorities.
But we also want to make sure that there isn't a violation of people's rights with, raids, for example, that are done in coordination with local law enforcement on people who are frankly, holding down jobs and have been in this country for many, many years. We think that's improper. And in Illinois, that's not something that we would condone. There's been some talk about using other states' National Guard, red state National Guards to somehow come into a blue state and try and enforce these new Stephen Miller inspired rules. And that's just not something we're going to accept. But we also want to make sure that there isn't
sorry, that video was on a loop. But Kashami Kate writes, I'm from Milwaukee. Back in the day, Chicago politics were brutal. Kashami Kate. It still is. It very much well still is. And the problem is, especially here in Chicago, is that the sanctuary facilities have been mishandled greatly. I mean, there was a point where they were going to build a migrant shelter on the south side of Chicago, and the residents were against it for two reasons. Number one, nobody told them it was going to be built. And number two, hey, why are you going to put those migrants on a toxic facility filled with dangerous metals and poisons? So you see, there was no plan. It was just to make money, to build shelters and put people in them, to take advantage of people, to try and rebuild voting bases here. And I'm just using Chicago as an example because this is Chicago politics. It's a brutal machine. There's nothing communist, socialist, Democrat, or Republican about it. Okay, it has no values in it at all. It is an all-consuming machine that will chew people up and spit them right out. So now we're going to see the word salad and attempts to block what Trump could probably do. Now, the Democrats definitely lost a lot of power in this election cycle, not only losing the office of presidency, but taking a gut check in the House and Senate. And all the while, what have I said on this show? That people will be put on the chopping block, that people are going to be stepped on, that people are going to be taken advantage of. On paper, sanctuary cities sounds great. I remember a long time ago, back in the radio days, myself and Daniel covered an event. It was in 2018. It was in Indiana, and we went to the Gary Chicago International Airport. Okay. And I remember getting there, and even Daniel said, Kit, are you sure we have the right directions? Is this an airport? And even he was shocked at the overall presentation of the airport. Okay. But maybe that's a story I should talk about, all the jokes that we made about it. But as we were waiting and seeing the protesters show up, this was a facility that was designed to bus in nonviolent immigrants. Okay. From all over Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, I believe Michigan, and Wisconsin. And on that day, the protesters did succeed in making sure that the buses didn't get into the Gary Chicago International Airport. But those buses were just rerouted and went to O'Hare. Bum. See, there's no plan. People are being used. People are being stepped on. The kids in cages, that happened under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And there's now this talk about using people on a chessboard again, because the Democrats are going to play their role, and the Republicans, Trump, he made a campaign promise, they're going to play their role too. Just who's going to be pushed around. All around, people are going to get hurt because of lies and fake promises. You know, I like to pull this video up here.
All lies will be exposed.
And the great lies being exposed. All those that were talking about sanctuary cities or that talking about protecting those people, it was just feel-good points to get voters to support them. Illinois governor on Trump win. You come for my people, you come through me. Well, JB. The Democrats took a gut check. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker held a press conference Thursday to discuss the aftermath of the election, issuing a warning that if anyone tries to come for my people, they'll have to come through me. Well, Pritzker, you're a big guy to get through. People also said that I'm a happy warrior, and I've always taken seriously my role as a happy warrior on behalf of this state. Even today, when I'm struggling with many of the difficult questions this election poses, my optimism for the future remains undiminished, Pritzker said. To anyone who intends to come to take away the freedom and opportunity and dignity of Illinoisans, I would remind you that a happy warrior is still a warrior, he continued. You come from my people, you come through me. Listen, there's a lot of problems in Illinois, One of the things is the ongoing influence of the Democratic machine, and it's decades upon decades of corruption. It's not just only in Chicago where there's a sickness, it's all over the state. It's the last great bastion of a machine that has stepped on people. And it's easy, very easy to say that this is what people voted for. But if you look at how elections are run here, I want to share another short story with all of you. When Jimmy Dore was still part of TYT, I believe it was during the 2018 midterm election cycle, Cenk and Jimmy were covering the Illinois election. And I think it was the early days of the primary, actually, the midterm primaries. And votes were being tallied up for one of the congressional districts. And then the votes for the progressive candidate seemed to have disappeared or went lower. And Cenk for a moment said, whoa, what's happening here? And Jimmy just nonchalantly just said these words. Oh, that happens all the time in Illinois. Votes disappear. It happens all the time. It's not that the people are voting for it. Can we vote for it is the big question. Loyalty to the two-party system here in this state is abysmal. All right. And if you're a politician, good luck in getting a voter to support you because people are burnt out. Enthusiasm in Illinois, enthusiasm, like what Alphonse Capone said in The Untouchables. Enthusiasm, baseball, everyone's like a team. Well, the team doesn't want to play. And so in their desperation, the last remnants of the Democratic machine is using migrants as a backup. But there was no plan to protect that backup. And people are going to get hurt. Brilliant job, AOC and Democrats. How are you going to walk away from this one?
Radio station just censored the word devil. Clearly, we are on a different level. I guess you wouldn't notice all the rolling boulders crashing past your shoulders when you're taught to shift your focus lower, scream at all the pebbles. Cheering on the bombers because you can't abide the rebels. But I bet you'll wring your bloody hands when all the dust has settled, when the last little limb is pulled from Gaza's twisted metal. Then you can say how you were led astray, and never once in all your days would you have knowingly supported all the genocide for which you clapped and prayed. But they baited you with unconfirmed blurbs about babies until you were filled with rage. Yet someone told you babies had been starving, bombed, and caged for nearly 80 years in Gaza, and you looked the other way. So regret, but make it fashion. Go and pluck that final petal off a hyacinth on Instagram for every kid they kettled. Every son that Israel imprisoned when they're little, that they tortured for a decade, then surprised with their acquittal. And when they got released and saw their parents and whatever siblings hadn't met the missiles, they stared right through their middle. Their eyes don't seem to focus, and their words are all but dribble, like they're pondering the darkest riddle. That is, how many false flags does it take to make humanity inhuman and uncivil, distorted by the revel? The crooked slant where Israel contorts into America, Biden bathing Bibi in a bloodbath in the bevel. I opened up my feed and I saw children disassembled. Turned some music on and heard the station censor devil. Imagine thinking Doja Cat's a threat to moral fabric in the single largest terror cell that ever felled a temple, that ever sparked a cleansing, that ever burned a market, that ever raped with bayonets or carpet-bombed apartments, that ever turned your water off and left you in the darkness, left you doing surgery on children while they're conscious. You sing the devil's praises every time you sing our anthem. You sing a hymn to him that watched us birth a million phantoms. You'll proudly wave his flag, and yet you will not name the devil? Well, clearly, we are on a different level. I can give you names, shit, I'll give you several. They say the devil wears a different face for every general, like a composite of the char he brought to fields of emerald, and the wail of every childhood we made ephemeral. So who else has left the stain of blood on everything they touch? Who else can starve civilians and they don't so much as blush? Who else has paid for Gaza being flattened into dust? If there's ever been a devil on this earth, then it is us. That's U.S. What an ugly couple letters. Feeding shit and ignorance to those it chose to tether. From the river to the sea, both are slowly growing redder. For the devil that you know just knows you better. It knows every gut reaction it could ever make you feel. It knows fear is that which wakes you up and gets you on your wheel. It knows just the kind of story that will justify its war. And the scripts are wrapped for World War IV. So just imagine my surprise to give the radio a listen and to hear such pious morals out of Zionists and Christians that they'd take the devil's name and try to clip it from existence while they carry out his bloody business. You would wave a fascist flag, and yet you honor not your Iblis? Name you not Apollyon? Hush you now your witness? Bleed the name of Belial till tongue is rolling listless in the man-made mouth of Mammon as Lamia's whispers listen. When carts are wheeling bodies through the cities that we crushed, and the very air is rotten with decay of all that was, who else would censor devil yet behave as Legion does? If there's ever been a devil on this earth, then it is us. U.S., but not a unity of souls. More a mass of corporations turning houses into holes, turning people into puppets, turning puppets into mold, turning mold into nutrition bars worth their weight in gold because they're bombing every bakery and burning every field with phosphorus that never once has wanted for a meal. The devil wears a mask and it delights in the reveal, in that moment where the face is let to peel. We do not love the underdog. We do not cheer the rebels. We lust for all their blood until the dust has finally settled. Then pity just ourselves that we were so misled to revel. Proudly wave his flag, and yet we will not name the devil.